Oh, there we go. Can you guys hear me now? You guys hearing me? Just pop it in the chat. I appreciate it if you guys can hear me now. Can you guys hear me? Everybody hear me? Sorry about that. I don't know what's going on this week with tech issues. Okay, good. Audio seems to be working. Thank you so much for typing that in. Sorry, I don't know what's going on with tech issues this week. Okay, so picking up or continuing on. So I don't know where I guess you guys didn't hear anything, but some of you know the drill. So this is a live call-in show. We want callers to be able to call in. We're still saying people say they can't hear anything. We got sound on Twitch. How about YouTube? YouTube, do you have sound? There's a couple of people on YouTube. Can you comment if you can hear sound? Facebook is saying no sound. Okay. Says they're getting some sound. Let's see if we can adjust that a little bit. How's that? Is that better? Sorry, guys. It's very frustrating, isn't it? But thank you for sticking it out with me. I really appreciate that. You guys are top notch. Hopefully you guys can hear that okay now. I'm seeing good levels here, so hopefully that's all right for everybody. Okay, so live call-in podcast, comment, be nice to each other. That's basically it. Let's move on because we've already wasted quite a bit of time. Oh, look at all those comments. And now I can't see all the... There we go. Okay. Okay, here we go. So, continuing on with our topic of this week of improving your sex life. So, today is all about oral sex and oral sex tips. So, there's a lot of do's and don'ts when performing oral sex. And when we engage in oral sex, we're actually taking one of the most sensitive parts of our lover's body into our mouths, which can be kind of anxiety provoking for some people because, hey, guess what? Teeth are there, you know, and we use our teeth for all sorts of things that would not be pleasant for genitals. So it's a bit of a trust experiment, but it can be super great and super fun. Now, it can also be great too because it's one of those situations where your lover can just lay back and relax and just enjoy it. So this can be a very powerful tool for your sexy toolkit. Now, one of the things that makes it difficult for people face all kinds of challenges when it comes to oral sex. And a lot of these challenges can actually be eliminated by strengthening the muscles of the tongue and the mouth and the jaw and the throat. And, you know, our tongues are incredibly powerful muscles. You know, they exert up a minimum of 6 pounds of pressure and max out somewhere around 8 pounds of pressure. And that's just when we swallow. So every time you swallow, just swallowing whatever, you're exerting anywhere from 6 to 8 pounds of pressure. That's a lot of pressure when you think about how large, or in some cases, how small the tongue is. Yet the thing is that while the tongue is one of the most powerful muscles in our body, a lot of people don't think about it like a muscle, and therefore a lot of people don't actually work it out. So a lot of problems that people have during oral sex actually come from weak muscles in the tongue or in the lips or tense muscles in the jaw. So, you know, when you want to improve your oral sex skills, it's actually, a lot of it is prep work. So it's not so much, I mean, there's stuff that's definitely in the moment. We're going to cover some of that, but I want to talk about some of the stuff that people don't usually talk about. And that's actually the prep work and strengthening those muscles. Okay. So a good example is where you hold your tongue when it's in a resting position, because that makes a big difference. You know, inside of your mouth, you have all kinds of soft tissue. But the roof of your mouth is actually geared to handle all that pressure that your tongue can deliver. And so think about where your tongue is right now, assuming you're just sitting and not saying anything, or just sitting and listening. You know, where is your tongue resting in your mouth? Most people tend to rest their tongue between their teeth and their bottom jaw, or they might hold their tongue at the top back of their teeth. And holding your tongue in all of these places can actually lead to weakening of the tongue muscles over time. So you might ask, well, where's the best place to hold your tongue? Well, I already sort of mentioned it. Can anybody guess? The roof of your mouth. So if you take the tip of your tongue and roll it up to apply pressure to the roof of your mouth. Now this is probably going to feel a little weird at first, and it may feel a little tiring if you're doing it for an extended period of time. But it's a good way to make sure that your tongue doesn't get lazy, that the muscles are still being flexed and used. And there's also like a bunch of other benefits to it as well, because your tongue needs exercise. And you know, all those common complaints that people have, like lockjaw or gag reflex, or just feeling strain when they're performing oral sex, like I said, a lot of those can be just eliminated by having good muscles that are worked out in your mouth and around your jaw. So I mentioned that there's some other benefits to exercising your tongue, and even just this simple way of where you place your tongue. And one is that you're actually going to feel a lot better. So while it may not feel super natural to put your tongue there, when we do, we actually can release a lot of tension in our face. Now, lots of people don't realize, but you actually do everybody holds quite a lot of tension in your face. And when you strengthen your tongue muscles, and as well as holding your tongue in the correct place, it's going to help balance the other muscles in your face and your jaw. And this actually leads to a reduction of tension in those other muscles over time. So another advantage is that you're ultimately going to sound better. So your voice is going to end up feeling richer, and it may sound sexier. You know, this happens because your tongue is in good shape and your facial muscles are more relaxed, with the right muscles becoming engaged. So you may have heard or seen or been told by others, if you ever speak on stage or if you ever do any kind of public speaking, that people will warm up their voice, and they do all these like warm up voice exercises. What they're really doing is warming up the muscles in their tongue and their mouth. So if your muscles are already warmed up or engaged because you're doing these exercises and you're holding your tongue in the right place, then you don't need to do that. Your voice is already going to be warmed up, your muscles are already going to be engaged in the right way, and you're going to get that nice, rich level to your voice. Another major thing is anybody who snores. If you can form the subconscious habit of always returning your tongue to that position where you're pressing the tip of it on the top roof of your mouth just away from your teeth, then if you can always return to that position, you're not likely to snore. Why? Because it's actually physically impossible for you to snore with your tongue in this position. Now, I think you'd have to practice this. If this is not a normal place for you to put your tongue, that you're going to have to practice it in order to get to that point where you return to it subconsciously, or you do it in your sleep. It'll take a little practice, but it's worth doing. So while I've been talking, I'm sure a bunch of you have been trying this. And one thing that you may have noticed is that after a couple of minutes, if you're not used to it, it may be uncomfortable, and you may feel like, wow, this is a lot of work, you know, that's okay. Just ease into it, take it a little bit at a time. So, because when you're engaging your tongue muscle in this resting position, it can feel exhausting if you're not used to it. And you're also going to be a lot more aware of your face. So ease into it. If you want to start practicing this, pick, 5 minutes every day, and you're like, for 5 minutes, I'm going to focus and make sure I'm doing it. And then as it becomes more comfortable, you can increase that time until you're doing it all the time. So there are a bunch of exercises that I want to go over that people can use to strengthen your tongue muscles, to strengthen your lip muscles, and relax your jaw and throat. Now, I know a lot of people are like, what exercises? This is supposed to be about tips. Why are you giving me exercises? And like I said, it's about strengthening those muscles. The stronger the muscles are, the easier oral sex will be, and the better you are going to be at it. Think of it this way. If it was easy, everybody would just do it. It would just be the way, and everybody would be amazing and phenomenal at oral sex. That's not true, unfortunately. But you know, doing these kind of exercises can prevent things like lockjaw, you know, when your jaw is so gripped by tension and it's set in one position. And this makes it really hard for your tongue to move around and play in the space. A lot of people have problems with teeth, you know, and that usually happens because of a lack of proper jaw control. So teeth easily get in the way because you're not used to moving those muscles in your jaw and in order to get your teeth out of the way. Another common problem that people have that these exercises can help with is saliva. So some people produce so much saliva that it can actually get in the way of breathing properly, and that can make giving oral sex quite uncomfortable and sometimes difficult. So there's this sort of test that I kind of want to go over to help you assess where you currently are with your skills. This is also a good measure to figure out how much progress you've made. So if you start doing some of the exercises and you're like, oh, you know, am I doing this right? Am I making progress? There's a couple of things that you can do to sort of test out how you're doing. So the first part requires a mirror. So stand in front of the mirror and close your eyes and stick out your tongue and try to point it. Try to make a well-formed point, like a straight arrowhead, and try to keep it parallel to the ground. And now you can open your eyes and see how much of a point that you've made, because ultimately you want to be able to make your tongue nice and pointy. You want to have tension and pressure in your tongue when you want it. Okay. Another good question, you know, do you rest your tongue at the spot at the top of your mouth like we were talking about? You know, does it return to that spot naturally? The more you do that, the easier it's going to be, the stronger tongue muscle you're going to have. Okay. Can you move your tongue independently of your jaw? So this one's a little challenging. So if you start by placing your tongue, I'm just getting a comment, please make a video that talks about sexual objectification, please. I will definitely take that, and we'll probably talk about that next week. How about that? Because this week we've got our topics picked out, but we will definitely cover that next week. Okay. So, so to place your tongue behind your lower teeth and pronounce like a hard k sound, like a hard K sound. And this is going to get you to open up your jaw. Then curl the tip of your tongue to the roof of your mouth, like in that spot that we were talking about, and place your finger in between your teeth. And pronounce the letters N, L, T, and D. So you want to pronounce the letters, not the sound that they make. And the middle of your tongue is going to move when you do this. But what you want to pay attention to is your jaw moving at the same time. And does your tongue touch your fingers? Because your jaw shouldn't be moving and your tongue shouldn't be touching your fingers during this exercise. Okay, so that's a good way to sort of test your tongue strength. There's a few more, but since we got started a little late, we'll come back to that. Maybe I'll just I'll publish the list on the episode write-up, because I want to actually get to the exercises and the other tips I have lined up because they're really good. So if you guys are okay with that, you guys are okay with skipping the rest of the tongue test to make sure your tongue's in shape. It's a good couple to start with anyway. Okay, so let's dive into those exercises I was talking about. Now, some of these may feel silly or weird. They're not meant to make you look amazing. They're meant to help you strengthen those muscles. Okay, so the first one actually helps out with kissing too. And I kind of call it the pucker up, or it could be called like the fish exercise, if you will. So what you want to do is you want to push your lips all the way forward until they're open and try to roll the insides out a little bit, sticking them out as much as possible. And then you want to fully, while they're fully extended, try and open and close your mouth, bringing the fleshy parts together. So this is kind of like making a fish face, so, you know, right? And you want to be very deliberate with it, opening and closing your mouth. Okay, now, like I said, it may feel a little funny or silly, but it's all about making you aware of the inner part of your lips and making sure that you're using them. So it's a good rule of thumb to, when you're doing this exercise, to touch your lips together 5 times. As I mentioned, this exercise can also help you improve your kissing ability by helping you become more familiar with the inside of your lips. So the thing to remember, like, people talk about good kissers and bad kissers, and a lot of people have a hard time distinguishing what's the difference between a good or bad kisser. They can say, oh, that person kisses good and that person kisses bad, but a lot of people can't really articulate what makes it good or bad. So the trick to good kissing, and this also applies in oral sex as well, is that you want to use a balance of the outside of your lips and the inside of your lips, okay? Because the outside of your lips are kind of a little bit more rough and it's a different texture. The inside of your lips are a lot more soft. And when you mix these two different sensations during kissing or during oral sex, it's more pleasurable because it provides some contrast. When people just use the outer part of their lips, people feel that they tend to feel like it's thin, it's not passionate, people feel like it's wanting. Okay, but on the other side, if you use too much of the inside of the lips, people sometimes describe it as like, oh, I felt like they were trying to like eat my face, which obviously you don't want, right? So you need that balance between the two, okay? So another exercise that you can do for your lips does require you to be in front of a mirror. So, pardon me. So you place the tip of your tongue on the roof of your mouth and then pull your lips apart as wide as you can. And you want to place the pads of your index and middle fingers on your teeth, so, okay? And then you want to pronounce a hard E, like it sounds like eat, and you want to hold that. So make sure, you're trying to focus to make sure only your lips are moving. And you want to make sure that your tongue and your jaw and your neck and all that is not moving. So try to keep your lips stretched so that they aren't touching your fingers too. Okay, and then hold this position for the count of 10. And then you want to remove your fingers and bring your lips forward, same in tight little circles, so the insides are pressing together, kind of like we just did in the previous exercise. And you want to say ooh, like in swoon. And you want to alternate these two exercises at least 10 times. And what this is going to do is it's going to help you stretch your lips and gain a little bit of control over those lip muscles so that you can use them to the best benefit. So another exercise requires using a little salt and water. So you want to place a teaspoon of salt into half a glass of warm water. Don't make it hot because that'll be uncomfortable, but just some warm water to help dissolve the salt. And the salt's important because it's actually going to help you feel where the water has gone. It's sometimes when you just have water, it's like, you know, when you expand your lips, you're not necessarily going to feel where the water's gone. The salt just sort of helps you, you know, determine that feeling. So take a sip of water, and what you're going to do is you're going to pump the water back and forth behind your upper lip. You know, allow your lip to be changed by the shape of the water. And this is actually going to help you create more dexterity with your lips. So it'll make them a little bit more flexible and less rigid. You can do the same technique with air, and that actually helps maintain the softness of the inside of your lip. So next you want to take the water, that salt water, and you want to push it outwards towards your cheeks. So allow your cheek muscles to completely relax, and then slowly push the water into them and maintain it for a few seconds. And you can alternate back and forth. And once again, that just sort of loosens everything up. Make sure, you know, you're getting that flexibility and dexterity. And then you want to take the water and push it back slowly behind the upper lip. And, you know, gradually build up the pressure until the lip is rounded out. And try and keep your lip muscles relaxed. Once again, you can repeat this exercise too with with air, just for that softness. I know I'm going really fast, guys, but I really wanted to get through this. So, it's like an Olympic event prep for stellar oral sex. That's exactly what it is. You're preparing. It's like, how can you be the best at something if you don't actually exercise those muscles? And I know lots of people are like, this is really weird, and I can't believe that this is the sex tip she's giving. But honestly, it really makes a huge difference between mediocre oral sex and mind-blowing oral sex, right? So, big difference. So for the next exercise, you're going to need an empty plastic half-gallon jug and say 4 to 5 feet of string, depending on how tall you are. So what you want to do is place the jug on the floor and tie the string to the handle so that you can lift the jug off the floor with the string. And then what you're going to do is you're going to put the end of the string into your mouth and bend over so that you're looking at the jug. So at that point, you're going to try to lift up the jug using your lips. Now, it's important not to cheat. Don't use your teeth. Also try and avoid sucking. This is not about sucking. This is about using your lip muscles. Okay, so the best way to try and do it is to use the inner part of your lips to sort of pull the string, and then use your tongue to hold what you've gained to the roof of your mouth while you pull up the next section. And then keep going until you've lifted the jug, I'd say at least maybe 6 inches off the ground, and you can try this several times. So these are all exercises geared towards strengthening your tongue and your lip muscles, which is going to make it not only make oral sex more amazing, but it's also going to make it more comfortable for you. So keep practicing these exercises, I would say several times a day for like a week, and then you can compare your progress to before. So a couple things, now that we've sort of talked about the prep work that you can do for amazing oral sex skills, let's talk about some tips for in the moment. So a big thing, and I know I shouldn't need to say this, but it is amazing how many people don't really think about it, but enthusiasm. So being enthusiastic about performing oral sex is something that really adds an amazing amount of sexiness and fun for your lover. I mean, how would you feel if you're like, hey, do you want to go down on me? And your lover was like, yeah, okay. And they make it seem like a big chore. It's kind of ruined a little bit because, sex is also about that mental level that we've been talking about a little bit this week. So make sure that, you're enthusiastic. If you're not feeling enthusiastic about it, that's okay. You don't have to be like, woo, oral sex all the time. But, you want to try and make it an enjoyable experience, right? And nobody enjoys feeling like they're forcing somebody else to do something. It's not fun. I mean, unless that's your kink, but that's a whole totally different conversation. So try and be enthusiastic if you're offering to do it, or if you're talking about doing it. And if you're not feeling enthusiastic, be honest about it. You can look at things that what would put you in the mood, or what would help you be enthusiastic about it. But, just be honest about that, okay? And try and play up the enthusiasm a little bit. Another big thing is playing with the rhythm and pauses. So lots of people make the mistake with sex, and all kinds of sex, not just oral sex, but of going too hard and too quickly and not building into it. So even if you don't have a lot of technical skills, and even if you haven't been practicing those exercises we talked about, a lot can be gained in oral sex by simply choosing the right rhythm and working into it. So everybody's going to be a little bit different in their preferences for what the rhythm should be. So it's always a good idea to start slowly. Don't be afraid to take some tantalizing pauses in order to tease. That can be super sexy and really up the wow factor in the moment. You're going to have to try and read your lover's response a little bit to those pauses to know how long they should last and how many you should use. Some people get frustrated really easily if they feel like they're being teased too much. They don't like it. Some people love it and cannot get enough. So make sure to try and read your lover's responses. If you're not sure, you can always check in, or you can discuss it beforehand. And then you want to move in a rhythm that's comfortable for you, but also sort of builds an intensity. The more comfortable you are, the easier it's going to be, the more you're going to enjoy it, the more the other person's going to enjoy it. So while certain people may prefer certain rhythms or intensities, go with what's comfortable for you. It's going to lead to the best results. Another big thing is do not be afraid to use your hands. So good oral sex incorporates a variety of sensations, and those sensations don't all have to come from your mouth. Incorporating your hands can provide different stimulation. It can help with your stimulation. And in case of oral sex on penises, it can actually also cover more of the genital area. Lots of people struggle with taking the whole penis into the mouth. It can be uncomfortable. It can trigger a gag reflex. Some people just don't like doing it. So you don't have to. You can use your hands to supplement, and that's often some of the best ways. So, you know, get a good amount of saliva going, cover the tip of the penis with the mouth, and then let the saliva drip down and use your hands, okay? Totally effective, totally awesome. People usually love it. Controlling your breathing is pretty crucial to your own comfort and your ability for oral sex. So I know that seems sort of like a given, but you know, it makes a big difference, and how you learn to control your breath makes a big difference. So it's a little bit more than just, oh, breathe through your nose. Yes, breathe through your nose is a good tip. You don't try and eat and breathe through your mouth at the same time. Sort of the same thing for oral sex, but how you control your breath makes a big difference. A lot of people tend to feel really exhausted very quickly during oral sex, and that's often a result of improper breathing, or not getting enough air, or not, you know, just not engaging in breathing enough. They hold their breath as they tend to do it, which is not good. That may be something you could be instinctually doing and not realize it. So just sort of think about the next time that you're performing oral sex. You know, am I breathing? Am I remembering to breathe? You know, taking that moment. So it's also important to remember to, when you're breathing, to relax your jaw and your throat, because it's actually going to help you breathe properly. It's going to let more breath in if you can do that. If you're constricting the muscles in your jaw and your throat, you're also constricting the airflow, which can make it a lot more challenging and make you feel more exhausted easier. So one of the things that can help you relax those muscles is, before you start, or maybe you can do this as like a regular thing, but head rolls. And that's just when you sit in a chair, preferably with your back supported, and then just make sure that whatever you're sitting on is firm enough. I don't recommend this necessarily for the couch or any kind of soft surface. So basically a good test is, if you roll your head, does your spine collapse forward? And if it does, it means you're not quite sitting on a hard enough surface. So once you're situated, relax your shoulders and just let your head loll. Just let it roll right across your chest without exerting any energy. A good rule of thumb is, imagine that your head is a big balloon filled with water, and you're simply letting it roll forward. You know, exhale where your head rolls across your chest, and inhale when it starts to roll across your shoulders. And you can go both directions, clockwise and counterclockwise. It's important not to strain yourself. And if you do feel strained, just make smaller motions. You don't have to do huge sweeping motions. And this is actually going to help your muscles relax quite a bit. Another thing, aside from breathing, and all those other things that we just discussed, is you can use your lover's fantasy to your best advantage. So many of us love to be complimented on things that make us proud. Cisgendered men particularly place a really high value on their penis, for example, and they believe, most men report that they think that it is one of their most attractive features, and it's one of the features that women love the most in the case of heterosexual couples. The female cisgendered heterosexual counterparts, however, actually rate the penis as one of their least favorite body parts, not for its function, but just for what they enjoy looking at. So just being aware of what your lover is proud of, what your lover feels good about, and a well-placed compliment can do a lot to add that extra little zing and enthusiasm to an oral sex session. Understanding what fantasies play into your lover's sex drive can add to that too, whether it's role-playing or, you know, something like that. I mean, that's something you can discuss with your partner. A big question that I often get about oral sex, particularly from cisgendered heterosexual women, is, do you have to swallow? The answer is no, you do not have to swallow. However, you do have to be polite. You don't want to make your partner feel bad. Don't make a face. Don't run to the sink to spit it out. That doesn't make anybody feel good. You know, try and be considerate of their feelings as well, okay? So we've covered a lot of tips for someone performing oral sex. So what tips do we have for someone who is on the receiving end? And there's a couple that I want to mention just because they're pretty important. One of the biggest ones is hygiene. As far as oral sex etiquette, having and maintaining good hygiene is super important. Nobody wants, genitals have a tendency, regardless of your gender or what sex organs you have, genitals have a tendency to sweat more. There's scent glands that are right in that area that can give off a bit of a smell. So just making sure that you're taking care of your hygiene, especially if you want to encourage your lover to go down on you. Good hygiene is important. As far as hair goes, that's a conversation that you and your partner need to have. Some people prefer no hair, some people don't mind hair, some people love hair. So it's totally up to you what your preference for your body is. And if your lover has a preference and you feel like accommodating that, that's a conversation that you guys should have. But it does make a big difference as to whether or not somebody's willing to go south, if you know what I mean. So also being encouraging and sensitive to your partner. So a lot of people feel reluctant to engage in oral sex because they feel like their skills suck. They're nervous. They're like, oh God, what if I do a horrible job? So offer some encouragement, be supportive. You don't have to lie to them and say, oh my God, you're amazing, if they're not amazing, but you can offer subtle support and encouragement. And if you offer direction, try and offer it in a positive way. We've talked about this a little bit this week already, but don't say things like, don't do that or anything like that. Try instead to redirect it in a positive way. Like, could you try, I would enjoy, this might be awesome, stuff like that, okay? Another major point that I just want to mention too is be sure to check with your partner about their comfort level about being forceful during oral sex. I know this isn't something that lots of people talk about, but there is a good portion of people that when they're receiving, they like to place, their hands on the head of their lover and push their head or pull their hair. That can be triggering to some people depending on their sexual history. So make sure you just sort of talk about this before doing that. And just make sure that you guys are both on the same page and comfortable with that. Same thing with like thrusting. This is sort of a bigger deal for someone who's receiving who has a penis. Thrusting can sometimes trigger a bit of a gag reflex if the person isn't prepared and ready for it. So just be aware of those little things, communicate with your partner, and everything is good. One last question that I commonly get is about the taste of semen or sexual fluids. And there's a lot of stuff online saying that different foods can impact taste. This has not been definitively proven one way or the other. However, there is some research to suggest that, how you eat can impact what your sexual fluids taste like. So, a lot of people say that meat makes people taste sour and fruits and vegetables make people taste sweet. Once again, that's not definitively proven, but I will say that it is impacted. It is impacted by somebody's personal biology as well as like 10 million other factors like their overall health, their hygiene, all that kind of stuff, right? So, take it with a grain of salt, but I'm sure I would never discourage somebody from eating healthier because overall that's going to be a good thing for you regardless. And it may, for you, have the added benefit of changing your sexual fluids to a more pleasant taste for your partner. Does anybody have any questions or comments or thoughts? I know I burned through a lot really quickly, but we kind of lost 15-20 minutes at the start and I didn't want to skip too much. We skipped a little bit, but that's okay. Any thoughts or questions? Does not appear so. Okay, so I guess we'll move into final thoughts. All right, so tomorrow, of course, we will be back for Thursday. And Thursday, we're going to talk about spicing things up. So, we sort of talked about tips to improve your sex life yesterday. If you missed that, please go check it out on YouTube replay, or you can download the podcast on Podbean, Spotify, and new today, iTunes. Getting out there. All right. So you can always catch the replay. Oh, and also on my website as well. So that was sort of covering more general tips. Tomorrow we're going to talk more about specific tips on how to spice things up and different ways you can spice things up. Okay. There's lots of resources on my website. Please check it out at exploresextalk.com. And for anybody looking for more, or if you really appreciate what I'm doing and you want to support it, consider joining our Sexy Hero Society. It's got lots of extra, information tips for people who really want to get the most out of their sex life. It is super awesome, and it's only $20 a month, if you can believe it. $20 Canadian, I might add. So totally worth get the biggest bang for your buck. Also, I'd like to ask everybody to share, share this with somebody, press like, press subscribe, follow the different channels. It really helps out and helps get the word out, because promoting sex positive stuff is actually really hard to promote, because lots of people, or lots of platforms, I should say, are not open to sex positive advertising. So I'd really appreciate it if you guys can share and like and subscribe and tell people about it so they can have the best sex of their lives too. Thanks everybody so much for tuning in today. I hope you guys enjoyed it and picked up lots of tips. I look forward to seeing you all tomorrow, and everybody have a fantastic night.